Happy day, everyone, and welcome, CityBiz audience. We're really excited to have you here to meet our guest, Zach. My name is Paul Silva. I am the Chief Innovation Officer at Pixel Edge and have spent much of the past 25 years starting a number of startups, leading angel groups, and leading angel investor syndication efforts. And Zach and I have had the pleasure of working together for many years in the realm of helping crazy entrepreneurs on their ambitions towards benevolent world domination. One of the reasons Zach and I have gotten along so well, I met him. He was the exited entrepreneur. He had recently sold off his pharmaceutical company. Pharma is a really hard sector to do that in, so it was very impressive right from the get-go. He joined me in mentoring many entrepreneurs. He then co-founded the Wire Angel Investor Group, the premier angel investor group in central Massachusetts. And he is then, not having enough trouble to be causing, decided to become the executive director of the Venture Forum, where he's really helping startups get off the ground. Zach, it is so awesome to be with you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Paul, thank you. Thank you for having me and for leading me through this process. And thank you to CityBiz as well.
So we have in common a love of helping local entrepreneurship ecosystems get off the ground. And you've been doing so much important work at the Venture Forum. So what role do you see the Venture Forum playing in creating jobs and economic prosperity in central Massachusetts?
Well, I mean, Paul, I think most people understand that so many of the new jobs that exist and that come into being come from entrepreneurs. It's entrepreneurs that lead to new business growth. And when you look around Worcester, there are so many large employers that exist now. Well, one day, long ago, those companies were little startups where a couple crazy people got together and said, you know what? We want to build this business. So for entrepreneurs to be successful and for us to grow um, workplace opportunities and jobs in Worcester, we need to invest now in the big employers of tomorrow. I mean, it's Paul, it's the old analogy about, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, it's 20 years ago. Well, what's the second best time? It's today. And we're really trying to plant trees today that will become these big, beautiful oaks down the line.
Amen, Zach. We definitely got the same hymn book. So you have this important mission. You see the potential entrepreneurs can have on the region, and I'm gonna just riff on that for a moment. So I know why the crazy entrepreneurs care about you building this, and I know that some people care about these great oaks forming. But what's the benefit to the big companies in Greater Worcester for there to be a bunch of startups being born around them? How's it going to help them?
Well, Paul, I mean, one, it provides different opportunities for them depending on the sectors. If it's a big company like AbbVie, which is located in the Worcester area, they can see little startups in the biotech space that one day they might want to work with, they might want to acquire. Um, Interesting places to learn about different new technologies that are emerging that can affect some of these businesses. And sometimes it's the entrepreneurs that lead the path into the future on where business, particularly tech businesses, are going, and it gives insight into the larger companies as to where things might be heading.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, you and I shared background funding startups. Their exit is usually a big company comes and buys them. And so the big companies are looking for innovation. They don't tend to do it in-house. They look for crazy people like you and me and the people we mentor to start the thing, and then they buy it. And if that startup is right in their backyard, then the big companies in your town are a lot more likely to gain access to that innovation, has been my observation, right? If all the innovation is happening in Silicon Valley, then only the big companies out there get to benefit from that innovation. It looks like I talked over you.
No, it's fine. I think you're right. What they get really is sort of the early view of some of these companies. So they can interact with them sometimes right at the very beginning. And you're certainly right that it is kind of like the sea where the big fish eats the smaller fish. Maybe not in such such a hungry terminology, but large companies do often look for innovation by acquiring smaller companies. I think that's been proven across industries.
And I know to lead us into another question you and I were thinking about was, I've done a lot of work west of you in Western Massachusetts, and we really struggled that the big employers out here, they try to attract talent, and they've often struggled because, yeah, they have a job to offer one partner in the relationship, but the other partner looks around and is like, I can't find another thing for me. There wasn't a vibrant enough ecosystem of other jobs. And so it made it really hard to attract and retain great talent. So I think if Worcester can attract even more startups, that sets things up. So the question you and I were thinking about was, can you tell us a bit about how you and your fellows at the Venture Forum believe that Worcester has the potential to be a globally competitive startup hub?
Sure. Well, I think it starts with the fact that Worcester has a lot of the ingredients that are needed. And probably the easiest place to start is with the number of colleges that are in the area. I mean, I think there are 8 colleges in Worcester proper, including WPI, which is a big source of tech startups, robotic startups, biotech startups. A lot of those come out of WPI. And then there's another 5 or 6 just in the nearby vicinity. So there's over 35,000 students that are in Worcester on a regular basis. Um, the other factors that I think are important, Worcester is very cost competitive, particularly when you compare it to Boston. This goes from everything from housing to office space, warehouse space. All of that is much more affordable in Worcester and across central Massachusetts. In fact, I think it gets less expensive as you move out of Worcester. Um, Worcester is also it's the second biggest city in New England, but it's also incredibly accessible. So we're only 50 miles from Boston. So it takes an hour if you time it at the right time of the day to get into Boston. Um, but you can also be in Hartford, you can be in Providence, and within a couple of hours, you can be on the outskirts of New York. So Worcester is easy to get to and easy to get to these major areas. And it's now got pretty good train service. The Worcester Airport, more and more flights are going through it. There's multiple airlines flying from it. So that's really, I think, important. Um, and then Worcester also, when you look at the industries, it's not reliant on just one sector. So there is a lot going on, as we said, in the academic side. If anybody is interested in working in academia, whether it's teaching or in all the different professional components, there's advanced manufacturing, there's bioindustrial manufacturing, there's robotics, so many industries that exist within Worcester and the Worcester area. So there's a lot of opportunities here. Um, and then, I think a really key factor is it's a good place to live. The quality of life is great in Worcester. If you like to ski, there's a ski hill about 20-25 minutes away. Hiking and biking is all easy to get to. You don't need to go through hours of traffic. There's lakes everywhere. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I know more and more people are looking for quality of life as a key component of as they pick where they want to live.
So access, it's easy to find places that have low cost of living, but they also need to have the other resources you need. You need to have access to the investors and the other industries and mentors, and that's a magic combination you guys need to have. And that affordability, gee, but it's as if startups are kind of broke and are always trying to find some place to live, and it's getting harder and harder to do that in the major tech hubs. I was just talking to someone and their kids, apartment, a studio apartment in New York City was $6,000 a month. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you can find something for $6,000 a month around here if you want to look, but I don't
It'd
think it's the rule of thumb at all.
be a
And
very large
the other,
studio.
yeah, the other thing is Worcester now has so much of the entertainment. The restaurants. There's a professional. The Woo Sox are here. The AAA affiliate of the Red Sox. We have an ECHL hockey team, the Worcester Railers. So there's a lot of things going on, great restaurants in the area, a lot of the amenities that people want from city living without a lot of the headaches that you get. Worcester traffic is like 10 times less bad than anything you'll ever see in Boston. So if it takes 20 minutes to get somewhere, it's not bad.
I can attest, having just done a set of college tours back to back, three in Worcester and three in Boston. And my experience in Boston was like, "What? Please, child, don't pick here. I don't have to deal with this traffic. Worcester's just fine." All right, so now there's a couple key programs you have at the Venture Forum that each address different problems that entrepreneurs are struggling with. The 5 minute pitch and the Wu Tank. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure, the 5 minute pitch competition is something the Venture Forum's been running for over a decade, and it's just what it sounds like. It's a pitch competition. All the contestants are given 5 minutes to pitch their ventures to a panel of live judges and a big studio audience, and then the judges select who wins the non-dilutive cash prize. We've added some layers to it now to better support the entrepreneurs and help them succeed. So before the pitch competition itself, we match all the entrepreneurs with a mentor to work with them on their pitch to help them understand what the best message and what the most compelling parts of their business are to present, because 5 minutes goes really, really quickly. And that event, we actually have it happening this year on November 19th, is probably the premier pitch event in central Massachusetts. Um, Wu Tank is something that we started earlier this year, and that's an intercollegiate pitch competition. So some of the colleges that I mentioned before, they have their own entrepreneurship programs, and they run their own internal pitch competitions. So what we did was took the winners of those and had them pitch in front of a panel of sharks on the stage, in front of a live audience again. And when they pitched, they weren't pitching for investment, but they were pitching for funding to help a specific aspect of their business. So we had 8 student companies pitch. We awarded, or the judges awarded, the Sharks awarded $14,500 to the companies, but it was done real time on the stage after negotiations between the Sharks and the students.
A lot of people don't realize how important it is um, to get the when you have a bunch of great colleges, then that means that many parts of the country are sending their best and brightest young people to you. And that is a golden opportunity to show those young people that they should stay. And I know that it was because of a pitch competition in Western Massachusetts that I settled here. It gave me the money to do the next step with my startup, and then they kept giving me mentoring. I had no other allegiance to the region, and I would not have stayed had it not been for that. So the fact that you guys are doing such a robust program and you got multiple colleges to collaborate, that is incredibly rare, and that's going to pay some real dividends. Get those students engaged with your community and leveraging more resources.
No, I was just going to say, we're excited to build on it for next year. We've taken feedback from the colleges and particularly from the student entrepreneurs. And one of the things we want to build in more of is interaction between the entrepreneurs from the different schools, so that they get a chance to learn from each other and, form a bit of a network amongst themselves. Because that type of collaboration is hard to do otherwise.
Absolutely. And you guys have a Launch Worcester platform that you put out this year and a mentor match. Tell us a little bit about those. Those sound interesting.
Sure. Launch Worcester is as you said, it's a platform, and it's really designed to be the front door to entrepreneurship. So it it contains all of the resources that are available within the city and within the sort of the greater Worcester area, so that an entrepreneur regardless of what type of business they're starting. It can be a small business, it can be a tech startup. They can go to Launch Worcester and they can look for the resources, whether it's banking or legal, if they're looking for incubator space. It is all there, and there is of course, a chatbot now, an AI chatbot that speeds things up even faster, so that it's even easier for the entrepreneurs to find the resources that they need. And that's really what we're trying to do, is make it easy for the entrepreneurs to find what they need, because there are so many resources here. And one of the things we heard as we interviewed entrepreneurs is that it's often hard to find these. So trying to bring a central place where entrepreneurs can go, and also where there's a calendar component to this. They can see what different events are taking place, and choose where they want to go and spend their time.
Zach, this is extraordinary. It doesn't, for someone that doesn't know how hard it is to create one of these things, I have watched many entrepreneurship ecosystems. We all we all have struggled with the problem that the entrepreneurs just want one place they can go to find the directory of help, and then they're happy to go follow up. And it sounds easy to put together. Almost no one has been able to put it together without spending vast amounts of money once upon a time. The fact that you have figured out a way of leveraging technology to bring this together is going to give your entrepreneurs a huge advantage. And I know it is hard to maintain and hard to build. So for folks that don't know, hats off to them. That is really, really hard.
Paul, thank you, and I would love to say that it's just us doing it all the time, but so much of what you do, and what we try and do, is to work with others. So we actually partnered with a company that develops these platforms. So we've worked with them hand in hand to create this platform. The company is called EcoMaps, and they've been a great partner for this. And it's because of their technology that one of the most compelling things is it keeps all the information up to date. The thing about making a directory is 2 days after you launch it, it's already out of date because something has changed. And working with EcoMaps, we don't have that issue. They regularly update, using their algorithms, all the information. So what you see on Launch Worcester is actually current data, which is great.
That is fantastic. And yeah, no one can ever do it alone. It's an ecosystem. You guys are at the center helping pull everyone together, and that is so important. The Mentor Match program. Now, we've all been involved in lots of different mentoring programs over the years, and most of them fail. Because it's really hard to get mentors in, to not burn them out, to convince them that this is something that's not going to take up too much of their time. So there's just so many challenges. But without good mentoring, entrepreneurs have to make all the mistakes by themselves the hard way instead of learning from our mistakes. So how have you guys changed that model to be able to help your entrepreneurs connect to great mentors?
So Mentor Match is not designed to that program is not designed to tackle all the problems that an entrepreneur might be facing. What we try and do with the program is offer them an opportunity to tackle what they think is the most pressing problem they have, and to do that over an 8-week period, where they meet with usually 2, sometimes 3 mentors, for an hour per week over the 8 weeks. And I know you don't necessarily solve a problem in 8 weeks, but you can often put together a plan to solve the problem. And we like the 8 weeks because we're not asking too much of our mentors. We want to be careful not to extend something for too long where they can't make a commitment, or even worse, they've made the commitment and then for reasons beyond their control, they're not able to fulfill those commitments. This way, it's a very fixed period of time. We're going to be running a program starting in October, and we've extended it to 9 weeks because it runs over Thanksgiving, and we don't really expect anybody to do a lot of mentoring or seek mentoring over that break. So we've extended it to 9 weeks. And then we think by keeping it short and keeping it focused on something, one major problem, it'll be fun for the mentors. And I think, Paul, it's something we've talked about. Um, they have to be interested. It has to be something they enjoy. And so far, and we're only one cohort in, we've had that feedback from the mentors that it was a really enjoyable experience, and I think a number of them have kept up with the companies that they mentored. So it's extended beyond the 8 weeks, but that's between the company, the entrepreneur, and the mentors.
I love the way you found that balance of creating enough commitment that the entrepreneur has a chance to build a relationship with the mentor, and the mentor can help them iterate over time, right? You need time and reps for things to be successful, but you've also figured out how to make it a short enough engagement that it's still fun. I mean, if you tell me, like, Paul, an hour a week for 8 weeks, it's just one tour. That's all it is. Like, that's hard to say no to, right? I don't have to be afraid of it. I can just commit. And then if I'm really busy, I won't do the next one, but it's pretty easy. Even if I do get busy, I can probably squeeze the hour in, So I think it's brilliant the way you found a way to find that balance. And you guys have partnered with the Mass Biomedical Initiatives, and that's got their own mentorship program. So tell us a little bit more about that and the differences.
Sure, sure. That's the Spark program, and it's very much the same as the Mentor Match program. It's an 8 week program, but this one is focused on biotech startups. And if you've worked with companies in the biotech and the pharmaceutical industry, it's a really different sector, and it requires um, a lot of different types of mentoring, from regulatory to manufacturing to clinical trial design, reimbursement. There's so many factors that go into making a successful biotech. So MBI was interested in having a mentorship program that would work specifically for the entrepreneurs that they work with, and others outside of Worcester, and asked us to work with them on this. And it's something we are happy to do. And Paul, I just have to sort of come clean and say, we didn't invent this 8 week program. This is something that Mass Bio did years and years ago, and you know, it's just the old thing of, like, no need to recreate the wheel. So we worked with the person who set up that program to set up the mentor match, and then we extrapolated that over to the Spark program.
Good artists borrow, great artists steal, Zach. It's well respected in our world. So much of this is about mentors, right? Getting mentors in, and all of us get approached by a wide range of nonprofits asking us to donate our time to help, right? So, but we're all busy, and we have to decide where to spend our time. What is it about mentoring entrepreneurs that is particularly awesome and engaging? What do your mentors love most about being a mentor to your entrepreneurs?
I, I think it's a combination of things. I know when I've done it, sometimes it's just the creativity of what you're seeing, um, how excited they are, for the solution to the problem that they found, um, how committed they are to making it happen, and I think there's something really fun, particularly if you're working with young entrepreneurs, about helping them in a way that maybe you wish you'd been helped in the past. Um, but I think for me, it is just being so impressed at some of the ideas, and how they're putting these things together. And it's sort of fun to be along for the ride.
The pathological optimism of entrepreneurs is infectious and delightful. And whenever I turn on the news, I generally get depressed, right? I just see how there are big problems in the world, and the people that have the responsibility for solving them seem to really be struggling. And oftentimes they're not making progress, right? And then you look at entrepreneurs like, global warming. Okay, what if I just invent a radically new battery that totally, we can stop arguing about this. I'll just make something, I'll make solar cells better than fossil fuels. Oh, okay. Oh, is this plastic toxic? I'll invent a new kind of plastic that isn't toxic. Well, that's impossible, but I did it. Oh, That's kind of cool. I thought it wasn't possible, but apparently not. So they just go against the wall. God bless them. Bang their heads against the walls. Many of the startups, the vast majority of startups fail. Not the vast majority of entrepreneurs fail because we usually are foolish enough to get up and do it again. And they're the ones that are actually solving the problems and creating that prosperity. So that gives me such a lift.
I mean, I've never worked with an entrepreneur who says, when I fail, I'm going to do something else. I mean, that they just don't think that way. And it really is, it's a great mindset to have. And I think it's it can really sort of charge people up to be part of it and see it.
And I learned so much, right? Because they're out there on the bleeding edge, right? We're too busy doing our jobs to know what's the latest and greatest, let alone what is impossible that they're inventing from scratch. And so when I hang out with them, I'm like, wait a minute. Did you just say you've genetically engineered bacteria to crawl inside of tumors and kill them? And this isn't science. This isn't a sci-fi. This is a sci-fi novel. What are you talking about? Like, no, I've been doing it in the lab for 10 years. What do you mean? You've been doing it for 10 years? Like, but I know for your audience, that's probably old hat, Zach, given your background. But for my audience, as a former physicist, I was like, what? And so I learned so much from my entrepreneurs. I imagine you've had a similar experience.
Yeah, and it's just interesting where people choose to go. And as you said, it can be tackling, world issues, and sometimes it can be much smaller things that are based on their personal interest where they see a way to really drive that forward.
And what are some of the other, if you're making a pitch to busy executives out there who are thinking about possibly mentoring here, they're not entrepreneurs themselves, but why would they want to do this, or why should they encourage their employees to participate in this thing?
Well, it sort of comes back to a lot of what we've been saying is it's a great way to learn, to understand what's going on in their industries if they're in similar industries, and it's a great way to give back and to support your local ecosystem. So many of the community banks do that. Big companies, a lot of them have their employees give them the opportunity to volunteer, and I think for the people that do the mentoring, it is fun and it is interesting, and it's different from what the day to day is. So as you said, they can see some crazy people doing stuff.
And yeah, if your employees are engaged and thrilled at what they're doing and they're being exposed to fresh new ideas that they might be able to bring back, all of that's good. Some of the things I've noticed is sometimes you find your future employee, because again, most startups fail, right? And so but the people that are running those startups are a step above, right? They're crazy, they're innovative, they're willing to go through walls. And if they realize like, oh, okay, I took a try at it and this is not for me, like I need a real job, then you know them and you're like, but you'd be great here. How about I give you a steady paycheck and you put that brilliance to work for me?
They've developed skills that can be hard to get across whole different sectors of business, from sales and marketing to accounting, to just plain leadership roles and having to make these decisions.
And from a networking perspective, I noticed for me and my mentors, when they'd come to the programs I ran years ago, it's like, oh, okay, there's lots of networking events I can go to, right? It's okay, they got the drinks out and we're going to talk about something and it's only so engaging, but great, I'm there to talk to people. But instead what you had is, oh, I have an event where me and two other people, in the case of the mentor match program you're talking about, right? We're working with this passionate entrepreneur. We're not just randomly trying to find things to talk about. We're applying our expertise to help this entrepreneur. It's not like if I go and do community service, I'm not any good at it, but I can do it. But if I do this, I have a superpower. So they're engaged, they get to show how smart they are, and they network in a completely different way. So I don't know, have you experienced similar things when at your programs?
Sure. I mean, you can see it when people make a connection, and and then you hear about it. It's like, oh yeah, I met him at your event, and now I've been talking to him, and we've had coffee, and I think the Venture Forum, going way back to when it was even just a volunteer-run organization with some really limited programming, still tried to facilitate those opportunities for people. and to take the time to meet one-on-one with the entrepreneurs and connect them to the different resources. So, and it fires people up doing that. It really
So
does.
your employees are going to be excited. They're going to make great connections. They're going to bring smart knowledge back. They might find good hires. They're going to network better than they can anywhere else. But otherwise, it's a terrible idea. Big companies don't think about having your people volunteer here. Like, clearly, we got an amazing opportunity, and we're almost out of time, Zach. But there's one question we have to talk about if we're talking about startups, and if we want to have a thriving ecosystem, the startups they all have in common they don't have money. And so, how are they going to get money? What are the resources that the Venture Forum and Worcester bring to the table to help your local startups find and secure that funding?
So, you know, I wish Venture Forum could say we'll invest in all these companies, but
No, that's not your
that's not
role.
really what we do. That's not our role. But we help make introductions to different groups that do um, that are providers of capital, and I think as importantly, we work with the companies on their pitches. So a couple of our success stories, companies that have gone through our 5-minute pitch competition. One is Valis Insights, which is still a Worcester-based company. Uh, Emily Molstad is the CEO. I heard her pitch at least 10 times over 18 months. She participated in our 5-minute pitch competition. She actually won it. And over the past year, she went out and raised, I think, about $1.5 million in venture funding. And that's on top of the 4 million or so they've received in grant funding. Another is Farm Blocks, which is a WPI spinout. They participated in our 5-minute pitch competition a couple of years ago. They didn't win. They didn't win, and they didn't get any prize money in the pitch competition. But they've since gone on and raised $2.5 million in financing. And again, I've worked with them, and several other members of the Venture Forum community have worked with them on their pitches. Um, just sort of narrowing it down and really trying to focus their message. They did all the work. We just provided the advice, but it's been successful for them. And they're not there yet. Neither company is a full and thriving and out of the woods yet success, but they've made a lot of progress, and that's really cool.
They haven't had the time for that yet either. And it looks like the company that competitions. It's not about winning them. It's about the experience, and then the experience sets you up, and the relationships set you up so you can raise the money. Like the company that raised over 2 million that you mentioned, it's just incredible. And I think Worcester also. You mentioned earlier that you guys are close to a bunch of things. That was a challenge for me. Western Massachusetts is far enough away from everything that investors were not interested in investing in a company that was headquartered in Western Mass. But a company that's in Worcester can go to the greater Boston ecosystem, which has one of the highest concentration of angel groups in the world, one of the highest concentrations of venture capital in the world. And you're within range. They're not going to insist that you move into Cambridge necessarily, right? And so thanks you guys giving them training, and you have the relationships, you can get them in front of those people and gain access. And that's a really powerful set of tools.
Yeah, it's you can take advantage of what's in Boston, but you don't sort of absolutely have to be there. And particularly in this post-COVID world, when people are so comfortable doing things remotely and on Zoom or whatever, um, it being in Worcester is actually great for a lot of these companies. Being in Actually, Paul, I think even being in Western Mass would be okay now, for so many of
My
them.
timing was off.
Yeah, well, yeah. Next pandemic, Paul. Next pandemic.
All right. Well, Zach, I know I've kept you a little over time. You've got other things. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today and for sharing your story with our CityBiz audience. CityBiz audience, thank you for joining us. It was awesome. I hope you enjoyed this. Please click all the appropriate buttons and follow up with us.
Thank you, and thank you, Paul. Really enjoyed it.